Hey, it's Larry. Thanks for listening. Happy New Year. Real quick, before we get into this episode, I had such an amazing, eye-opening, life-changing experience at the World Parkinson Congress in Kyoto that I want others to have that opportunity too. So Becca Miller and I and 24 of our PD community friends have launched a year-long WPC travel grant fundraiser. We're each doing a 2-week Facebook fundraiser. Mine's underway right now because my birthday's January 9th. All the money raised will be used to help offset travel costs so more people with young onset Parkinson's can attend the next WPC in Barcelona in 2022. You can search out details on the When Life Gives You Parkinson's Facebook page or donate directly to the WPC website. Go to wpc2022.org/YOPD fund. If you or your business would like to supply matching funds, hey, good on ya. Email me at parkinsonspod@curiouscast.ca. And now, on with the show. It's time for another extra dosage episode of When Life Gives You Parkinson's. Hi, I'm Larry Gifford.
And I'm Niki Reitmeyer. Extra dosage episodes are those in-between bits, special bonus content to get you through until the next full episode.
Niki, when we started this podcast, one of my aims was to tell my story and introduce you to the people that I meet along my journey in an effort to demystify Parkinson's and really encourage others to share their story.
Yeah, that's right, because when we share stories, we raise awareness about Parkinson's, which, of course, in turn attracts more donor dollars to do more research to find a cure.
Exactly. You've been listening.
Yes.
And I'm thrilled to report that stories are being shared quite a bit, whether it's sharing your diagnosis with your Facebook group or documenting experiences on Instagram or sharing your story on a video on YouTube, making a feature film, writing a blog or a poem or drawing cartoons. As a community, those of us with Parkinson's are sharing more of what we're going through.
And do you think that that's making a difference?
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just anecdotally, like yesterday, somebody made a comment on the podcast, and I love getting comments on the podcast. It was Johnny in Canada. He says, I don't have Parkinson's, but I've learned so much through listening to Larry and everyone close to him talk about it. This is really a window into Larry's life. It's so good.
Oh, cool.
So like even people without Parkinson's are hearing the stories. Now they're more aware of Parkinson's, and that's key. And then there was another listener whose uncle, Anthony, lives in the United States. He has an uncle with Parkinson's, and now Anthony's organizing a charity run this year to help raise money.
That's awesome.
See, so now there's the raising money part.
Right. And of course, this money being raised for research with that ultimate goal that hopefully one day, they're going to be able to find a cure for Parkinson's. But, finding that cure, it still seems like a lofty goal, doesn't it?
Well, sure. But I think it's reasonable to think that we can figure this out ultimately.
Yeah.
But don't get wrapped up into how difficult a cure is going to be to find and develop. There are other people much smarter than me that are trying to do that even today. What we have to do, what we can work on is sharing our stories. And each of our stories is very different. And to that end, today on the Extra Dosage, I want to introduce you to Jim Redman. Now, Jim reached out after listening to our podcast. He is a high school teacher and a volleyball coach in Ottawa. He and his wife, Krista, have 3 grown kids, and he was diagnosed 3 years ago. Today, he's my age. He's 47. And I talked to Jim for the next full episode about what it's like to be a teacher with Parkinson's.
Oh, interesting.
But today, I thought would be a good place to introduce Jim's story so you can get to know him and what he's gone through up until this point.
For me, I was having a really hard time running in a straight line and keeping up the pace that I was going at. Now, I mean, I have always been active, but and running was what I would do most often, although, to be honest, I was never particularly fast at it, but I just kept on getting slower and slower. And then when I would try to speed up, I would start to stumble, or I would weave all over the path that I was running at. During the course of the winter, I fell 3 or 4 times, just in situations where I would start to go down and couldn't do anything to stop myself. And then I guess one day while I was driving, my right pinky just fluttered once. And I looked at that, and my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, had Parkinson's when I guess I was a teenager. And I actually thought to myself at that point, I said, wow, geez, I wonder if this is going to turn out to be Parkinson's. And, I guess about 6 months later, it did.
And what was the reaction at the time for you and Krista?
Well, at the time, it was a little bit of relief, to be honest, because it was the answer to the question of, just what was going on. Because, there are things that look like Parkinson's that aren't Parkinson's, that, as you know, that can be fairly scary. So, you have to go through all the blood work, the urine tests, those sorts of things to try to get the process of elimination. It was diagnosed as Parkinson's. And so then it was something that we finally had a name that we could tackle, I guess. So then it was, all right, well, what medications can we start to take? And is there any lifestyle changes that I can make to, try to make sure that my quality of life gets better and stays that way, I guess, for as long as we can make it.
And so what are some of those changes that you've adopted?
Well, it's the medication.
Is it Levodopa?
Oh, yeah, the carbidopa, Levodopa. So that's 3 or 4 times a day, depending on, how I'm dealing with my symptoms. And then I take Azilect, a pill of that in the morning. And then there's a Nupro patch that I change once a day as well.
What's the patch do for you?
So it's a dopamine agonist. So, not that I'm, fully versed in the technical aspects of it, but apparently it's supposed to open up the dopamine receptors in my brain so that the dopamine that gets produced, or, the synthetic dopamine that gets in there, is taken into my brain a little bit better.
Nice.
Yeah.
So good stuff.
It's a packet. Yeah, I know, right? I think what else I've done is, as soon as you get diagnosed, you do a tremendous amount of reading. And one of the things we came across was this study related to diet and how that impacts symptoms. So, basically I've cut out 95% of the dairy that I used to take in, red meat, deep fried foods. So that's been about 2 years now that I think since I've had a hamburger or nachos or fish and chips, which is when we used to go out to, we still do, but when we used to go out to pubs, we'd have a couple of beer and some nachos and a salad and play some cribbage. So we still do that occasionally, but we just change what it is that we order.
Does the diet work for you? You feel like it's working?
You know what? I do feel like it's working. I think when I was first diagnosed, I was hopeful that would be, the worst, or like the level of Parkinson's that I was experiencing would start to decrease for a few years at least before the progression of it finally became to, progress beyond the point of what the medication at that current level could deal with. And I think that it has done that. So, I mean, when I was, my tremor was almost always constant. And the stiffness is still there. The muscle tightness and cramps are still there. But I guess the outward appearance of Parkinson's, it has decreased since I was first diagnosed. And so I think part of that is due to, the things like the medication, the diet change. I've actually upped my activity level. I read an article on biking through Iowa and how that helps some people with their Parkinson's symptoms. So, I've switched from running to cycling. And I do that as often as I can, or some interval training. I used to do the boxing for a few rounds when I heard the episode that you tried the different activities, and so I can remember going to the boxing, hitting the bag, and making that having that make me feel a little bit better, just in terms of getting some frustration out, but also using different muscles to different intensities to do that. But I found that cycling works best for me right now.
Good for you. That's hard to do. That's hard for me to do. So good on you.
Dude, I hear you. It is hard, but so if and not always am I able to do it. So, but I feel it if I take a day off. I feel it the next day. I mean, just like you, I went some physiotherapy, and I found that makes a really big difference as well. So even though I don't exercise 7 days a week all the time, I do stretch 7 days a week for half an hour to 45 minutes every night. And I find that really helps with sleep and just, general movement. So all those things combined, and it's a lot. I sometimes, people say that Parkinson's is a full-time job, and to a certain extent it is. It's, I spend a few hours every day just trying to maintain the quality of life that I have right now and hold off Parkinson's for as long as I can, so that hopefully someone will come up with the answer to say, here, take this, and we can get rid of Parkinson's.
When you were diagnosed, did you realize it was going to be so much work?
No, I didn't. You know what? To be honest, when I was diagnosed for as much as I said that we were happy because there was an answer, I actually thought that, well, you know what? That's it. My quality of life is going to go like into the toilet. Because when the stereotypical, Parkinson's person is older and stooped and doesn't do a lot of physical activity, and here I was at 44, diagnosed with young onset, and like you, I mean, when you mention young onset, the only person you can think of is Michael J. Fox, maybe Muhammad Ali, and so yeah, it was a lot harder to come to grips with it, but then, once you start to take the medication and feel better and do the research and figure out, well, you know what, I can do a little bit more, and you do it and you start to feel the benefit of it, you just keep on going. But, 3 years in, if I were to look back to myself 3 years ago and say, you know what, Jim, you're going to have to spend 2 to sometimes 5 hours a day working on this thing, I wouldn't have believed myself. So no, I didn't realize it was going to be this much work. And I guess, I choose for it to be this much work, but which makes a difference in my mindset. But no, I didn't count on Parkinson's becoming this much of my life.
Yeah, I don't think I did either.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know, there are days where you're like, is it all worth it? And then if you take a day off, you're like, oh God, I got to get back on it.
I know, right? And sometimes it's just like, you know what? No, I am not doing this today. You know what? It's I'm tired, or you know what? I'm getting a cold, or I don't feel well, or it's just been a hectic day. And you know what? I'm not going to spend 45 minutes on a bike downstairs, watching a video, or I'm not going to go to the gym and get on an elliptical machine or a treadmill or do an interval workout. I'm just tired, and so. Yeah, I get that. It's one of the things I say to people who ask is, you know what, and sometimes I'm still not just prepared for like the everydayness of Parkinson's, because really it's always there. I don't think there's been a day that has gone by since I was diagnosed that I haven't felt at some point that I have Parkinson's.
Yeah, it's funny when I think of like the early doctor's appointments and stuff I had with my neurologist, and they're like, well, don't let it take over your life. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
I know. How could it not take over your life? It's something that, really, it's always there. And you know what? You read the books by people who have gone through it, and they talk about, it took them a few years to get to this level of acceptance. That doesn't mean giving in, but means, sort of coming to peace with having it. And I can get there sometimes, but I must admit I still struggle with that. I'm still frustrated at having Parkinson's. I still, I hate having Parkinson's. I'm still frustrated with how it can, without any warning, impact what I'm doing in the day. And I think it's almost impossible not to think about having Parkinson's. Yeah, I don't don't. You're right. It's don't. We don't know. Don't let it try to take over your life. You can still have a healthy life, and to an extent, obviously you can. But and I know that everyone is different. But just trying to go on like it's just an added part of your life. I find that pretty difficult.
Yeah, I'm reading Michael J. Fox's book, Always Looking Up, and he was saying, he was saying in there that people are like, oh well, because you're such a voice for the cause, there's that's why you got Parkinson's. He goes, no, there's no reason why I got Parkinson's. I'm just trying to make the most of a bad situation. It sucks having Parkinson's. I'm summarizing, but I mean that's what it is. It's like, hey, this is the cards we were dealt. So what are we going to do? Are we going to fold, or are we going to play the hand?
That's right, and that's and to be honest, that's one of the reasons why I'm impressed with this the podcast that you're doing. It's because it's something that it's something that you can do, right? And it's I think that's an important message to put out to those of us that have Parkinson's, right? There is something that you can do. You hear the stories about people who get diagnosed and they shut themselves in and are by themselves, and I think, wow, that's a tough situation made worse. So yeah, I always try to, be as positive as I can be, and sometimes I struggle with that, but be as positive as I can be, and always look at, what it is that I can do to try to make it better. And that's, to be honest, I get a lot of help from Krista with that. So it's good to have a person or a group of people in your corner saying, you know what, you're doing pretty good. I know it's tough, but keep at it. I can see that it's making a difference. And yeah, you know what, today might be not so good, but tomorrow is a different day, and just keep on putting in the work, and you hopefully will see some progress.
So that is your extra dosage. As always, we're always very grateful to have Parkinson Canada as a partner for this podcast, and you can find more information at parkinson.ca.
And you will hear more from Jim Redmond about what it's like to be a teacher with Parkinson's on the next episode of When Life Gives You Parkinson's. Plus this.
You are good at your job and you love your job, and it takes a lot of energy. So when you come home in the evenings, typically, you're tired.
How do you tell your colleagues and go to your place of employment and tell them that you have something that is degenerative like this?
I was scared.
The employer itself may not be aware of what it means to have Parkinson's and how it impacts and does not impact an individual. So it's okay to educate your employer a bit.
If you ever hear me in a meeting going, you've asked me a question and you want an answer and a decision, and I can't do that at the minute. I just need a bit longer.
Well, maybe Larry won't be able to do his job anymore, so maybe we should replace Larry.
I've talked to others. They're like, I'm not going to tell my boss. I'd be too scared to do that. Where does that come from?
At least for me, it came from a feeling that somehow the day after diagnosis, you're going to be perceived as lesser in the eyes of your employer. I think that in most cases that's a false fear.
I mean, are there cases where employers have retaliated?
I myself was involved only a few years ago with a very serious matter, also involving an individual that had suffered from Parkinson's, and his employer, let's put it this way, treated him not the way it should have.
Thank you for listening. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this. And while you're there, give the show a rating and feel free to comment as well.
We are reading the comments and loving the comments.
Yeah.
Thank you. Tell your friends about the show. You can tag us on social media at Parkinson's Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can also jot us a note, parkinsonspod@curiouscast.ca. If you have a Parkinson's story you'd like to share, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Keep positive.
Keep exercising.
And keep listening.
We'll talk to you next time.
Canada may be known for its landscapes and friendly people, but beneath the surface lies a darker side of crime, history, and the paranormal. Since 2017, the award-winning Dark Poutine podcast has explored the shadowy corners of the Great White North and beyond, delivering chilling tales from a uniquely Canadian perspective. Hosted by Mike Brown and Matthew Stockton with over 300 episodes and fresh releases every Monday, Dark Poutine is your weekly ticket to the creepier side of Canada. Listen to Dark Poutine on Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts.